Hey, Holy Cross. My name's Peter. I'm one of the deacons, and this morning we wanted to give you guys an update on the search for a facility for our church. You may know this process has been going on for almost 3 years now, and we've looked at a number of facilities. The criteria have evolved over time. The process has evolved over time, and we know that we did an update in January that Ben gave during the informational meeting. But we've had some things develop in the last month or so that we wanted to catch you guys up on, that we feel like it's valuable and important to pass on to you guys. And Stephen Campbell is going to talk a little bit about how that process has developed.
So like Peter said, this has been going on for what, probably 4 years now?
Close to 4 years,
Four
yeah.
or 5 years since we visited the first building. And one of the things that we have not struggled with, but has been a constant question is, what can we afford? What can we look at? It's not just, is there a building available? But for us, it is, we don't want to look at something that's going to be a $20 million purchase or a $10,000 a month lease. Like, we can't afford that. And for the past, I would say 2 to 3 years, we've really narrowed our search down to things that we're not only comfortable with financially, but just that would fit our size, but would also fit within our budget constraints. And Jerry's going to talk about that a little bit, but that was a main key this past year, was trying to get our budget back in line. So with that being said, the facilities working group and the deacons went to the finance committee and said, can we come up with a number? Can we come up with a total? Can we come up with an amount? Just something, a gauge, a barometer, somewhere that we can start. And with that, the finance committee met, decided. Jerry took those numbers to the session approved the decision making. And now we're going to let Jerry kind of speak to you about those numbers and what they entail and where we came up with those figures.
So as Stephen said, the facility working group, actually let me back up. I'm Jerry Seeger. I'm an elder. I'm the chairman of the finance committee, which includes Stephen, Bobby Kittleberger, Jason McCall, and myself. Every month we meet to look at our financial position, giving, expenses, and open doors information, and so on. I gave an update back in January on the end of the year 2020. So in answering the question, what can Holy Cross afford? We're looking at a snapshot in time, which essentially is the end of 2020, or now February 2021. That's when we're meeting, the end of February here. And we're looking at two questions. What could we afford to lease a space, and what could we afford to buy a space? The first thing is that there are a lot of assumptions and estimates that go into these numbers. So I say that because they're always a moving target looking at our financial situation. So the first thing is when we look at a lease situation. Currently, every month we pay lease costs of $1,950 for the facility at Grace and for our Holy Cross office downtown. So we currently have $1,950 a month in lease that we pay. Last year, 2020, we had total gifts of about $360,000, almost identical to what we had in 2019. So it seems like pretty stable, and we're seeing a little bit of growth in our giving. We had a surplus in 2020 of a little over $20,000 that we put in reserves. So if we were to take that surplus and going forward had giving at least at that same level, you take that surplus and divide it by 12, that's another roughly $1,700 we could put towards a lease within our budget. So that's a total of $3,600 to $3,700 in lease costs. We're always looking not necessarily for a short-term lease, never a short-term lease, but a long-term lease, and even better, a lease purchase situation or an outright buy. Open doors, as I mentioned in January, we ended the year at about $310,000 And as of the end of February, we were at $312,000. Last year, we got Open Doors donations of $108,000 for the year. If we're able to find a lease purchase arrangement, we could use some of our Open Doors money in that purchase part of the lease purchase. So I randomly said, if you take 2020, we had gifts of 108, take roughly a third of that, about $36,000, and dedicate $3,000 a month to help with the lease purchase. You add those together, we're at almost $6,700 that we could afford monthly in a lease purchase using some of the Open Doors money that we've received thus far while we continue to build our Open Doors fund. So shorter answer is, on a lease purchase, we could afford $6,600 to $6,700 a month. That's a pretty good amount. Understanding there's all sorts of assumptions that go into that process. The other question was, what could we afford if we were to buy a building today? Again, same numbers. We have Open Doors balance of $312,000. Many of the places we have looked at need some work, refurbishment, repairs, and wherever we move, we're likely to have to buy furnishings. That may be chairs, tables, materials for classrooms, and that sort of thing. So if you assume we have to spend $140,000 of the current amount of Open Doors to do some improvements and furnishings and repairs, then that would leave, of that amount, $170,000 for a down payment. In a commercial mortgage, we're assuming that we'd probably have to put 20% down. So if that $170,000 down payment is 20%, then we could have a mortgage of $630,000, a total building cost of $800,000 if you add those together. So the question would be, can we afford a mortgage of $630,000? Making assumptions on a 25-year mortgage, interest rate of about 5%, the monthly mortgage payment would be $3,600 to $3,700. Now, that's not a coincidence that that's the amount we have in our current lease costs and our surplus available for that. Because again, I'm using assumptions looking at what could we afford, either in a lease purchase using some Open Doors monies, or in an outright purchase at some point now in the future. $800,000 may not be enough to purchase a building that would meet our needs right now, or it may require more in improvements and furnishings or less. And as we move forward, if we continue to work on growth in our congregation and growth in our giving, then the monthly surplus, the amount available for lease cost, would grow as well. So again, this is a snapshot based upon a lot of assumptions. We don't think we can answer, we know we can't answer every question. We can barely answer every question that we ourselves have as we're working on this process. But as we move forward weekly and monthly, please, if you see this and you've got questions, call us, ask us, catch us at church or something like that. So now Ben's gonna give a further update.
Taking that from what Jerry just went through, I'll kind of explain what we've looked at to this point and kind of where we're trying to go going forward. Up to this point, based on the budget we thought we pretty much had in hand and what we could work with, we had the problem of either not being able to find enough square footage, or with the money we had or what we could spend monthly, just the amount of square footage we could get just wouldn't be ample for what we need. So that was a problem. Or we ran into the situation where we could get the square footage, like the building would be big enough, but for what our budget was, but we'd have to come in and it was either a shell of a building, or we'd have to come in and do a massive amount of improvements to make it work for what we wanted. So we're kind of running into that problem. Until Jerry kind of came to us and gave us some new updates on what we could, that's why we kind of had a meeting of the minds of where we need to be, the deacons and the facility working group. Where do we need to be on the number? That was kind of helpful to find out what we could go get and what we could find and what was available, what would be available for us. So with these new numbers being run, it kind of expands what we can look at now. It gives us, our dollar's going to go a little bit further as far as finding us what would be usable, or find what would be best used for our needs. And when Jerry's talking about this purchase lease option type of thing, keep in mind when we do that, we definitely want to try to put together an ironclad agreement that would allow us to put some money towards a down payment. Because if we go into a lease situation, folks, that what we're trying to do is eventually get to a point where we want to find the building that we can lease, but potentially be there for a long time. It may be a lease to, like Jerry was saying, it was, the ideal situation for us would be, let's get into the building, make sure it's going to work for us, see where our growth goes, and then we'll have the money and become more comfortable about investing in the purchase situation.
And if the growth that we think is going to come,
Yes.
affording it, if we enter into it now at a price that we feel like we can afford, and our growth happens, it's going to be a no-brainer.
Right.
The question's going to answer itself.
Right, that's a great point. So yeah, we feel like if we were to get into a space that was permanent, where we could do things throughout the week, where we could kind of be in mission in the community where we're at, just the amount of things that a building every day that we can use opens up, we really think that will spur some growth in our church. And the other side of that is having more space. I mean, you can see when you come to visit us now, our church is getting pretty full. So, we see that, obviously, and we don't want anyone to come in here and have to be turned away or tell them you have to sit in the hallway or whatever the case may be. And I think we're beyond blessed and know it's an awesome problem to have, but just having more space we think would be ideal going forward.
Do you want to touch on the fact that a lot of commercial stuff tends to be kind of under the radar, and that for everyone to keep their ears open?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Kind of just throw stuff. They may not hear it specifically, hey, location X is available, but they can easily say, hey, this is what my church is looking for.
Right.
Do you know of anyone?
Yeah, putting feelers out in the community is a good thing. A lot of times in situations with commercial real estate, it's not always a sign on the front of the building. And you have situations too where unfortunately some companies will go out of business or get into financial trouble, and they don't necessarily want the whole community to know that, hey, we would sell the building if we had the opportunity. So keep your eyes and ears open. It's fine to throw things out to friends and family members. Hey, my church is looking for a place. And let me back up and say what we're looking for. I'd say we're looking for a 10,000-ish plus building. We'd like a big open space for worship. That's a key to the whole thing. That'd be a big thing. If we could have some classrooms and that sort of thing, or things that could become classrooms, that's something we would be obviously interested in. So yeah, just keep your ear to the ground. If you hear something, please let us know. We'll track it down. You give us the lead. We'll do it. And let me back up and say, this is what I do every day. I am in real estate, so that's part of the reason I'm in this group. I didn't say that in the beginning. I should have. But yeah, I'm used to tracking those kind of things down. So please feel free to let us know or let me know or any of these guys. Is there any other things, guys?
I just want to say Jerry touched on it and reiterate. We've been discussing this for 2 weeks now, and there's been a ton of questions just between the four of us. A ton of questions. So there is no way that in this 15-minute video, every question that you guys have is going to be answered. So again, just to reiterate what Jerry said, please, if you have any questions, reach out to any of us, reach out to one of your elders. They're probably just going to tell you to talk to us, but yes, don't form assumptions. We had questions. We know you will too. Please reach out.
And we know we won't be able to answer every question.
Right.
We also give glory to God because He's in charge. He's the one who's going to show us the place that makes sense for us. And He may show us a place that we say, wow, I don't know how that's going to work. But if we find a place that we think God is leading us to, we believe He will make that work, whether it's through a lease buy, long-term purchase, some long-term arrangement, or a short-term, whatever. He's in control.
Sure. Yeah, I'd say too, the last thing we want is for you guys to feel like you're in the dark on this. This is not some kind of secret group. There's no, we're not moving around in the dark of night. It's just one of those things where we want to be transparent on what if you're interested in what we've looked at or what we've done to this point, obviously ask questions. That's the last thing we want is for our congregation to feel like we're trying to do something that they don't know about.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, the last thing I'd say is just pray for us. Continue to do that. If you have been, man, we appreciate it. We do see things kind of opening up in some ways where some opportunities that have come our way we're looking at. So keep doing that. We feel like that's working. But, man, be in prayer for our church to find a home where we can be on mission in our community and spreading the gospel, where we can make disciples wherever we can go. So
Amen.
that's the goal. That is the goal. So, with thanks for your time. Hopefully this wasn't too long, but and hopefully it was informative. So,
Anybody got anything else?
I think that's it.
Good.
Cool.
Thanks for your time. We'll keep
Thanks.
you updated.
All right.